I would say it's probably a 5-alarm fire at Warner Brothers right now, because as we talked about in the lead up last week, and then of course over the weekend, it didn't look like Joker 2 is tracking well. And then we got about the worst news you could possibly imagine. Not only was gonna open lower than the first Joker back in 2019, but it couldn't even match up those expectations. People thought, I'm sure it'll still be a 50 or $60 million first weekend, right? Wasn't exactly the case. And now we're sitting there looking at a total and complete disaster for Joker 2 at the box office. And like you mentioned the other day, Jeremy, when things like this happen, you start to see people try to distance themselves. You start to try to see the blame game. We have seen exactly that for when it comes to Joker 2, because it looks like Warner Brothers is putting everything they can out there to say, hey, we let Todd Phillips do his thing. This is his thing. Don't blame James Gunn. Don't blame this person. Don't blame that person. Just blame Todd Phillips. It's all his fault. Well, it's the people that convinced Todd Phillips to do a sequel to a movie that he didn't want to do a sequel to and give him $200 million. Those are really the people that are at fault for this, before you bring in what they actually did with the movie. Inside Joker Folia debacle, Todd Phillips wanted nothing to do with DC on the $200 million misfire. And you're having a lot of this stuff coming out from sources close to Warner Brothers, effectively all saying the same thing. Todd didn't want help. He didn't want help. He didn't want to take notes from any of these people. Todd had full autonomy to do anything. There was no press, or there were no test screenings, and any notes that got given to him, he refused to look at. It's all Todd Phillips' fault, Jeremy. That this is the biggest disaster we've ever seen.
This is crazy, man. They are doing so much damage control right now. And this is Hollywood for you, man. They will turn on you in a minute. They will stab you in the back, because do you know what? They wouldn't be giving him all of this praise and credit single-handedly if this movie would have done another $1 billion. It wouldn't be just like, oh, Todd, this was all Todd. We had nothing to do with it. They would not be doing this in that situation. So this is the same, Hollywood that we're not allowed to criticize and call out because, protect the $1 billion companies. Ultimately, this is the man's gotten paid. Like, how much did he get made? How much did he get paid for this?
He got paid $20 million. That is revealed in this article. He got $20 million. Joaquin Phoenix got $20 million. Lady Gaga got $12 million.
I mean, it's hard to feel sorry for a man that just got paid $20 million. So you can pay me $20 million and blame everything on me, Warner Brothers. That's fine. I mean, that's totally fine with me. But ultimately,
those got paid as much as the first movie cost, period.
Jeez.
Right? First movie was about $55 million budget. Like that. It's effectively that budget went into just paying the top 3 people.
And based on what we've seen so far, so from the overseas and the domestic, what are we looking at? What is this box office run going to end up being when it's all said and done, do you think? Guesstimate.
Well, the thing is, it's a lot better. It was received a lot better internationally, not still to the level of the first one, but it was better than it was here in the U.S. So a lot's going to depend on this weekend and how it does this weekend. And because this is where we can start to see what the tracking will be, both here and overseas. The problem is, with $200 million wrapped up in the budget, with around $100 million wrapped up in marketing, this movie, that best case fucking scenario you're talking about, has to hit $550 to maybe $600 million at the box office. There's no way it's making that.
And the media has reported that it was only going to need 450 to break even, just because that was the spin. Yes. That was the spin that they were putting on it. And I mean, is this movie going to make $300 million? Worldwide?
I think that it might. I think that might be like its point. I think that might be where I see I don't know if it can go lower than that.
What an absolute, what a drop, man.
But it could be 250, 300 mil. That might be where it ends up.
What
and tracking less than the Marvels domestically, much better than it internationally, but still.
And the thing is what's crazy about this is, usually even if a follow-up to a very successful movie is not good, the opening weekend usually does not suffer this bad when the momentum is so strong coming off of the previous movie. So Joker 1 did over $1 billion. That was the highest grossing rated R movie of all time. Everyone loved it, generally speaking. It had very high praise across the board. Fans and normies alike all loved it. But the consensus was that no one was longing for the sequel. Everyone was kind of like, yeah, this is good. You know, this is a good story, good, you know, good one-off movie. It wasn't like people were like, we need to see the next chapter. You have movies like Spider-Man 3, where if you look at the box office numbers for Spider-Man 3, this is Tobey Spider-Man 3, the box office numbers are very positive for it, even though the reception to the movie wasn't positive because so many people love Spider-Man 2. And so you had all of the momentum coming off the previous movie, and that's happened many times. This is just unbelievable, man. This was a consensus across the board. The audience has told you they didn't want a sequel. No one was asking for this movie, and the numbers prove it. There was no desire for a sequel. You should have left this as it was.
Yeah, this is about the biggest disaster they could have had. You know, the biggest movie of the fall that like this time period probably has been Beetlejuice 3 or Beetlejuice 2, you know, a Warner Brothers movie, a sequel, and then probably the biggest flop of this same time period is going to end up being Joker 2 for Warner Brothers.
Jeez.
So, you win some, you lose some, I suppose, for WB. But with $40 billion in debt, looks like they've been losing a lot more than they've been winning.
I think the biggest goal for them right now is they've accepted that they're going to lose hundreds of millions of dollars. I think the biggest goal for them right now is to distance and keep James Gunn's name away from this, if at all possible. That's their goal right now, is to just say, James had nothing to do with this. This was a, you know, and that's why they're singling in on Todd Phillips. That's why they're focusing on going, this was his project. James Gunn, who now runs, you know, the DC you know, films division, they don't want him to have any connection to this whatsoever. That's why they're going to throw Todd Phillips under the bus, and he's going to take his $20 million and take his lumps.
And you know, it like two things can be true. This can be like massive damage control for them to get this stuff out there. It could also be true as well. And because we knew there were a couple projects that when James Gunn and Peter Safran came on, they weren't allowed to touch. One of those things was Joker 2. Another one of those things was The Batman 2. Like, those were projects that had been agreed upon by the studio that were going to continue on regardless of what James Gunn was doing, as opposed to other things that were in their power. You know, stuff that had been in production that they could have made the decision to keep going or stop it. But those two projects were not. So I wouldn't be surprised if there is a lot of truth to the fact that he did this all himself, but Warner Brothers, they're the ones that allowed him to operate that way.
Yep. Interesting stuff.
Yeah, I guess we have Superman to look forward to.